making shit up, because by that logic, they will win every battle. Every
yeah,
orc is going to be a winner.
Let's say the sword had gone through and it went right into his shoulder, and he just essentially laughs at it because that's what an orc would do, and then it turned into fisticuffs. That would be more quote unquote realistic based on the rules of the world that we know so far. But instead, it's just like, well, I could pick up a fucking stick off the ground and your power sword.
Would you actually have enough information about how everything functions to a very painful detail? So you can't just ignore those things. To some point, you gotta say, no, we gotta be faithful, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we even bringing Warhammer to life when we're not going to keep those things true? I mean, her weapon's going to go through his weapon.
To his weapon, yeah. So
like a lightsaber.
Is what he's saying, yes.
Like a lightsaber.
Like a lightsaber.
That makes a lot of sense, because this is not just electricity. If it was, then yeah, probably.
Then again, can the orcs create whatever weapon they want?
Out of their ass?
Yeah.
No, not immediately.
Not immediately.
Not as far as I know. Okay, so let's see.
I think that's kind of the point what they're trying to get at. I'm just going to continue to read through this, but I think that for this world, the lore that they've built up, the environment and everything else, let's say the sword had gone through and it went right into his shoulder, and he just essentially laughs at it because that's what an orc would do, and then it turned into fisticuffs. That would be more quote unquote realistic based on the rules of the world that we know so far. But instead, it's just like, well, I could pick up a fucking stick off the ground and fuck your power sword.
Yeah.
So
for sure, I agree with that. But I mean, this is not like the armor thing where we can say that maybe he can stab her because he's super strong. I think some of the comments that I read also pointed to this, but the power sword thing, I don't see how that can be excused.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. It could be indeed like a lightsaber. You can't
the
a normal sword.
The thing that I think you really want to focus on, because they start getting into like weird stuff about the science behind it, and this is like, I love this shit. I love when nerds argue about nerd shit, and I don't know enough, and I'm not scientific enough to know this, and it makes me go and look things up. The part that I think you need to focus on is when she stabs him in the mouth and it completely goes out the back of his head. Like, that's the part I think you should kind of pause and then continue reading the rest of what they have to say here.
All right.
So it's at that moment right there, right when you see she punches the sword through essentially his mouth or neck area. I don't remember which one. But, like, this is where the technology comes into play and what would happen. And then the argument that I saw in the chat is like, if an orc thinks that he can keep doing it, blah, blah, blah. And then they start arguing in the chat. So, yeah. I don't know how much you want to go into the comments, but that's where this seemed to be the bigger part of, like, what everyone was upset about. From War Master, the power sword being blocked by a piece of scrap iron is bad enough, but what's really bad is when she jams the thing through the back of its throat and it doesn't immediately pierce his skull and fry his brain instantly. It's a fucking power sword. They're designed to cut through armor, including power armor. The shiv I can almost, quote-unquote, give a pass to because orcs are retard strong, except he shouldn't have been alive in the first place to shiv her with her power sword jammed into his fucking mouth.
Yeah.
And from the Warhammer 40k wiki, we've got a description of a power sword, an Astartes power sword. A power sword is a power weapon that has been shaped into a sword of varying lengths and designs crafted from one of any number of different materials, though usually adamantium. When its power cell is activated, often by touching a control located on the hilt, the blade is sheathed in a lethal corona of disruptive energy. This energy field allows the blade to carve through flesh, bone, and most forms of armor plate alike, making a power sword a highly effective close combat weapon.
War Master below this post, below his own post. And it's such a fucking shame because the
animation... And it's such a fucking shame because the animation itself is pretty good. Then they start in. This is where all the battling that I was talking about comes up.
Okay.
Did you guys forget how orc tech works? A chunk of metal in their hands is basically a power weapon. It cuts through. It cuts because they believe it cuts. It blocks because they believe it blocks. War Master continues. That's not at all how it works. It's much more passive than that, and it requires hundreds of thousands of them to believe it. That's why they can't build gargants unless there are enough of them around and all rallied to the same cause. Continue with replies. Seems like that's how it works, seeing how there's lots of instances of space marines dying to orc choppas. But they should just be essentially invincible because ceramite. Warmaster continues. Warhammers do die to Orc Choppas, Jesus, due to a combination of the mass of the weapon and their strength. That doesn't have anything to do with their collective belief stuff. We're also talking about a power weapon that uses a disruptor field that severs the bonds between molecules and its tech the orcs themselves are familiar with, i.e. power claws. Can't sever molecules if I don't believe they exist.
But
And this
I'm
moves
not
in to
sure
start
that he
getting into
knows.
games.
I mean, we have to also talk about the fact that they don't know everything. So
They don't know everything.
they can't think about, oh, I believe this, I believe they're not that smart. They don't believe
Yeah,
like non-stop
they-
thinking about what they should and should not believe in so they can get an upper hand. That's why it's
They have no idea what a molecule is to begin with.
I mean, they probably don't. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not that smart to think like constantly like Action Man, the superhero. Like what is happening now and what should I do? Let's make all of these calculations now.
No, they
you know.
just barge into battle.
So I think World Master is more correct that
Mm-hmm.
it takes the collective belief and not just one orc just making shit up because by that logic they will win every battle.
yeah,
Every
indeed.
orc is going to be a winner. Yes, Tsunami.
If you scroll down past the meme, War Master's response here, I think this is the most prescient one for this argument.
Okay.
Because it goes to Eldritch Horror. I'm pretty sure there's been fluff that says orcs can lose half their head and keep fighting. This is the important part. War Master then says, there is, yes, but where the sword point is hitting the back of his throat is where his spine is. Severing that is instant paralysis at a minimum. So, I mean, I can keep going if you want to, but I think that's the most prescient thing here. Sure,
Yes.
they can lose half their head. They can have their heads bashed in, but their entire body, for the most part, is still somewhat working. But once you knock out that nerve connection there, like brain can still be there or not halfway be there. They can believe whatever they want to, but it doesn't mean that the neurons are going to go to the rest of their body.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm a fucking Warhammer casual before anyone wants to come and like at me. That's just the way it works in my brain. If there's a different way of going about that, I'd love to hear the argument because I think it's a fun argument.
Well,
But there is a good comment over here.
yes, this one by Adrich Horror. You're working under the assumption orc fungal biology works the same way as human biology. If you can sever an orc head and stick it in a robot body, then it's safe to say orc nervous system don't work the same way as human ones. I mean, that also makes sense, but
It
still they do
makes sense,
die
but,
in the
they-
same manner that humans do.
they-
Well, when you think about the power sword, because we know about the power sword, how it works, it went through his throat, technically, and then the energy from the sword is frying his brain, even if it's not through the brain. If even if the sword is not in the brain, it's below the brain, and it's frying the brain from beneath it, like for sure.
Exactly.
It's causing immediate brain damage by every single second. So that's one thing. That's one thing for sure.
And that's why they should have the power swords, because they're not enhanced, they're not as powerful as the Astartes. So that weapon should give them an edge against orcs and kill them faster.
Okay, then how the orcs die? I mean, look at what it says here. Can you read what Skycling posted?
It looks like counterpoint. It only gores the orc's brain. In the Warhammer 40k universe, it's entirely within character for orcs to continue fighting even after being decapitated. That is due to their unique, highly resilient physiology, which is a mix of fungus and animal, and their intense, innate drive for violence. Here is why orcs keep attacking after losing their head. Fungal biology and resilience. Orcs are a bioengineered fungal species. Their nerves are less sensitive, and they can survive injuries that would instantly kill a human. They have been known to walk off wounds that would be fatal. In some cases, they can be reassembled like Lego pieces. Decapitation survivability. While destroying the brain is the best way to kill an orc, some lore indicates they can keep fighting due to their incredibly tough bodies and lower sensitivity to pain.
Okay, then I have a point.
Yeah. So that settles the thing that their biology works different, but again, it settles the thing as you said, because his brain is fried.
Yes, so exactly, we're back to my point. If the brain is damaged, maybe he wouldn't be able to do this. If the head is severed, but it's
the brain still
intact,
works,
but
yeah.
it's intact, that's different, I guess.
Yeah.
But here we have a damaged brain for sure. Like
sure.
for sure. I mean, the light was going through his freaking eyes. That's what was happening. Let me just play this again. And to them, you can talk in the meantime. I'm just gonna play it.
Sure. I mean, I'm honestly like
Yeah.
undecided on this one. It's like they're making good points. I think it's a fun argument to have. And
Oh, yes.
if people don't resort to being like, "Yeah, I hope you die," or something weird like that, and just be like talk the science through, it's fine. The one thing that I've got an issue with here, again, it's the same thing I always say. Well, again, Warhammer Casual here. When you change the lore constantly, and you go from edition to edition, and the game continuously changes, it's hard to like nail down like what's the exact right answer here. And sometimes it feels like in this world, they could change things to make it work for them in that moment. Like it's the whole MacGuffin, where like a thing happens, or it's plot armor basically.
Yes, yes. Plot armor is a very good way to describe it. But again, this is, I'm going back to my point that this is standard Hollywood stuff, like literally. Just in Warhammer, I don't agree with it. I think that we should go past the point where everything is super convenient for the writers and they do not actually go by the rules of the universe, especially when you do something, when you put something on screen like Henrik I was trying to do now with Warhammer. You have to have established set of what works and how, and keep faithful to that, because this is the fabric of that universe. If you do things how you would in any other universe where all of those things don't work the same way, like for example, again, if we see a regular sword fight, one weapon will block another weapon, just like here, and they're literally going by that instead of going by Warhammer lore, logic, and principles. I don't think that should happen. I'm saying it's a regular thing that's kind of been normalized for years, for decades. It shouldn't be, though. I mean, we should be more intelligent than this. I mean, they shouldn't insult our intelligence, basically, because we're dealing with specific universes. This is the same thing as what if freaking Star Wars, you see a lightsaber fight and the lightsaber gets blocked by again a regular weapon.
Which happened in Soul Calibur 4 when the Star Wars characters were guest characters, and I always wondered, but how? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you can't block a
Doesn't make
lightsaber
sense.
with
You can't,
regular
yeah.
sword. It's pretty much a super thick energy that goes through everything. It cuts thick metal doors that are so thick that they're basically like 50, 60 centimeters of thickness. And
Not
you
to
can cut the
mention-
door open.
Not to mention that Jedis have a bit of enhanced powers than normal humans. That's why only they can wield actually a lightsaber.
So-
With ease. I mean, a regular human can pick it up and kind of use it, but it won't be in the same way. That's one of the things that actually kind of disturbed me in episode 7 when I think that John Boyega picked it up and I say, you can't use it in the same way.
Well, I don't think
It's
he
not
did.
forceful. Didn't he do or something like that?
Well, he can press the button, I guess.
Yeah, still.
So yeah, these things are like super important. Otherwise, the swords are not special, the weapons are not special. The universe is losing it's an identity. That's what I mean.
Yeah, if they done it for the Hollywood thingy that they thought it would be more dramatic if he blocks and if she has to struggle to cut through his head and things like that, but isn't it better if you actually use the rules of your universe and she just cuts through his? It's going to be a badass scene, is what I'm saying.
It would have been a lot more badass if that happened.
Right?
That's why I was saying if they would have shown her cut through his weapon,
Exactly.
it goes into his shoulder, and then he just grabs her and starts choking her, or like pounding the shit out of her face, and just showing the like raw power of it. That would have been better, I think. Her stabbing him, even with this argument, the more that I'm looking at it, the more I'm like, okay, I see where you guys are coming from. It's the precision when he's on the ground, after he's already been on the ground for kind of like a second or two, and he reaches down, grabs his knife, and then stabs her repeatedly with seemingly perfect precision. I think they could have shown it more like he would have gotten one off, or he's very wildly still swinging because his brain's not there anymore. I don't know. I think they could have shown this a little bit better and still gotten the same point across if they wanted to.
Yeah. Also, how does he see her at all?
Yeah, no idea.
I mean, he would maybe be disorientated
That's
at
why it
least.
should have been like that.
Where
That's-
exactly is her waistline? Because
Yeah.
first, her waistline is very small. She looks great.
She's on top of him, so that like at that I could make an argument even against that. Like I play devil's advocate. She's on top of him. She's not exactly that far away. Him aiming, that might be a thing.
Yeah, that's
Him
what I
stabbing
mean.
that many times, that's the thing that I'm like, what? What? How is he just repeatedly stabbing? Is this armor even doing anything? Like, what's it? What is she wearing it for? You might as well walk around in a bikini.
Yeah. The only excuse here could be that they're super strong, but again, he totally knows where her body is. If he can still feel his legs, and I mean, if
Well,
his
anything,
nervous system
yeah.
is not damaged, so let's say that he feels the rest of his body. I mean, that's also an argument. If the brain is damaged and fried, and being frightened is very second, how is he feeling his limbs so he can stab her at all?
So, involuntary reactions, that's what I was getting at. If he'd have stabbed like once or twice and he's just stabbing forwards and she just simply moved to the side and he's no longer stabbing her because he can't see, he's just doing things out of involuntary reaction, I think it would have come across a lot cooler. But instead, I don't know. I think the animation looks great. I'm really excited. I'd like to see where this goes. I think they have a great point here. Both the people that are arguing, and I think they have some pretty decent arguments against it also.
Yes, yes.
Personally.
Oh no, I mean, I agree. From one hand, you have, well, if you're a creator, you will have to follow some kind of a Hollywood thing because it's Hollywood or whatever. They already do that for ages, so people will not be that pissed or whatever is their logic to do this. On the other hand, shouldn't we like getting better and not worse?
Well, exactly. I mean, if you can show how her power sword goes through his weapon and just then decapitates William, that would have been badass. Isn't this what we want to see from that universe? Things that actually happen, they're not applying to the real Hollywood rules. You just got to do that. I mean.
Okay, so people are explaining stuff here. If you look at the way the orc touches the sword when it goes in his head, you can tell they think that the power field is some kind of electricity enhancement. Yeah, basically, that's how it looks like. Okay, let's go to what Chainsword said. So Chainsword says, I'm not going to argue with that because he is right. Also, sometimes I feel that the current writers get their lore from memes and wikis, considering how often they fail so badly. Of course, some experts will tell you it's because of the WA field, even though it doesn't work that way. Once again, people think memes equals lore. Well, again, this just to me is the Hollywood thing.
Yeah.
That is what the reason is. Tsunami, you can read the answers for this post if you like, starting from Mobius Bacon.
Mobius Bacon says, yeah, this stupid meme pretty much single-handedly distorted orc lore to the point where it's no longer funny. Alexius says, well, I do agree modern 40k animations are usually hilariously flanderized trash. Orc Chopos were able to smash through Astartes' power armor in the original Dawn of War into an intro animation. So it's not a new thing that people making animations think power armor is paper thin. Steven says, it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if the idiots behind that Sisters of Battle episode looked like a wiki page of power weapons and saw thunder hammer and lightning claws and decided it must be some electric weapon. And that's it.
Again, probably not.
Yeah, probably.
Probably not.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's thing. Okay, let's see something else. The sword did fine. You can plainly see it goes straight out the back of the orc skull. Almost through it. I mean, it was shining there, so it was definitely true to a point. The thing you're mistaken is thinking an orc needs his brain to keep fighting. Yeah, like it's dead, sure, but should have struck and made the distance, not staying within the depth. Blah blah blah. Okay. So, guys, definitely tell us what you think about this.
Absolutely.
In the
yeah.
comments.
Interesting
It's an interesting topic, but again, we have seen enough in our lives in terms of movies to know that this is something very regular, that it will happen, unfortunately. And it's kind of been a thing for years.
Indeed.
Like, I even remember the last time I was very pissed about something like this was when watching the series about Tutankhamun, like the latest ones that are made into a movie, but like a few parts movie. and he had an armor and everything, but he shown how he stabbed, and the armor was basically treated like paper. Like, what are you doing?
It's just there to look beautiful.
What are you doing? The same thing with Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones has an amazing scene when one guy is fighting young Ned Stark, you know, somewhere. And I think actually I posted that on Twitter a few days. It's a great scene. But again, the guy who's fighting the other guys, he's just stabbing them left and right, like there's no armor at all. And that's just not how it's gonna happen. So this is not the first time, not gonna be the second time. But they gotta get things straight, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense, especially when we have a universe like Warhammer 40k, which we do actually have enough information about how everything functions to a very painful detail. So you can't just ignore those things. To some point, you gotta say, no, we gotta be faithful, because otherwise it doesn't make any sense. Like, why are we even bringing Warhammer to life when we're not going to keep those things true?
I mean, also it said not only, by the way, the power field, but the sword is supposed to be made from adamantium.
Also that.
How does a normal axe is going to stop it?
I mean, the Orks don't actually have the best materials ever.
Yeah.
Okay.
For the imperium must not fail. Imperium we prevail. The warriors march with sacred might. Their purpose burning crystal bright. To lift the throne world from its plight and guard humanity's light.